When I first started 99 Nights, the game felt merciless. The opening nights were pure chaos. Enemies everywhere, unpredictable spawns, and barely enough resources to patch up my weak defenses. Honestly, I wasn't sure I'd survive past day 20. I remember one particular night where a single misstep, running out of wood while repairing my walls, nearly wiped me out. That moment taught me an early lesson. Survival depends on planning, patience, and respecting every enemy, no matter how weak. Tip number 1. Build your foundations. Focus on the basics first. Gather wood, stone, and food. Learn enemy attack patterns and avoid risky fights. In this stage, even a small mistake can cost hours of progress. Early on, I spent entire nights experimenting with positioning, figuring out which corners were safest for ranged attacks, where traps worked best, and how to funnel enemies into kill zones. Tip number 2. Upgrade slowly but consistently. Every small upgrade counts. The difference between a wooden wall and a reinforced one can determine whether your base survives a night. I made it a habit to prioritize gear that offered consistent defense or utility rather than flashy damage. For example, instead of upgrading a sword to the maximum right away, I focused on a durable shield and traps that could handle groups of enemies. Tip number 3. Avoid overconfidence. It's tempting to rush, but in the first 100 days, overconfidence is deadly. Early enemies might look easy, but the game teaches you that even minor overextensions can snowball into disaster. I lost countless nights by chasing loot too aggressively or experimenting with new attack combos before I fully understood the mechanics. Mental approach. At this stage, think stability first, efficiency later. Every action should reinforce your ability to survive. I treated these first 100 days like planting seeds for the endurance test ahead. Little routines, like checking every wall before nightfall, rotating my weapons for durability, and rationing food, became essential habits that lasted for thousands of days. When I first started 99 Nights, the game felt merciless. The opening nights were pure chaos. Enemies everywhere, unpredictable spawns, and barely enough resources to patch up my weak defenses. Honestly, I wasn't sure I'd survive past day 20. I remember one particular night where a single misstep, running out of wood while repairing my walls, nearly wiped me out. That moment taught me an early lesson. Survival depends on planning, patience, and respecting every enemy, no matter how weak. Tip number 1. Build your foundations. Focus on the basics first. Gather wood, stone, and food. Learn enemy attack patterns and avoid risky fights. In this stage, even a small mistake can cost hours of progress. Early on, I spent entire nights experimenting with positioning, figuring out which corners were safest for ranged attacks, where traps worked best, and how to funnel enemies into kill zones. Tip number 2. Upgrade slowly but consistently. Every small upgrade counts. The difference between a wooden wall and a reinforced one can determine whether your base survives a night. I made it a habit to prioritize gear that offered consistent defense or utility rather than flashy damage. For example, instead of upgrading a sword to the maximum right away, I focused on a durable shield and traps that could handle groups of enemies. Tip number 3. Avoid overconfidence. It's tempting to rush, but in the first 100 days, overconfidence is deadly. Early enemies might look easy, but the game teaches you that even minor overextensions can snowball into disaster. I lost countless nights by chasing loot too aggressively or experimenting with new attack combos before I fully understood the mechanics. Mental approach. At this stage, think stability first, efficiency later. Every action should reinforce your ability to survive. I treated these first 100 days like planting seeds for the endurance test ahead. Little routines, like checking every wall before nightfall, rotating my weapons for durability, and rationing food, became essential habits that lasted for thousands of days. This is the phase where most players give up. The novelty has worn off, nights feel repetitive, and the enemies grow smarter, faster, and more relentless. Progress slows, and it's easy to get frustrated. But it's also where the game truly tests endurance, and where the difference between casual survival and true mastery shows. Efficiency over power. By day 500, I realized that trying to max out every weapon, trap, or defensive upgrade was a waste of time. Instead, I focused on 2 to 3 tools that consistently delivered results. For example, I invested heavily in a combination of a rapid-fire crossbow, a reinforced sword, and a set of poison traps. This allowed me to handle almost any enemy wave with minimal resource expenditure. I also learned the importance of durability. Weapons and armor that could survive multiple nights without repair saved both time and materials. Efficiency became my mantra. Do more with less, avoid waste, and focus only on strategies that worked consistently. Resource management becomes critical. By day 800, every resource mattered. Wood, stone, and food weren't just tools, they were life insurance. Wasting even a few units could set back progress by days. I began tracking my resource consumption meticulously, keeping logs of daily usage, and adjusting routines to maximize output while minimizing loss. One night, I miscalculated trap placement and lost over 200 units of wood repairing walls that could have been avoided. That mistake taught me a hard lesson. Mid-game errors are far costlier than early-game mistakes. Combat lessons. Enemies at this stage aren't just stronger, they're smarter. By day 1000, I was facing waves that required perfect timing, precise dodges, and optimal use of abilities. I couldn't rely on brute force anymore. Every engagement demanded focus, knowing when to retreat, when to strike, and when to use traps. I also experimented with advanced combat strategies. For example, I learned to kite powerful enemies into clusters where area of effect traps could take them down efficiently, conserving both health and weapon durability. This kind of thinking transformed nightly survival from mere reaction into tactical execution. Mental endurance. The mid-game taught me the most important lesson. Discipline beats power. Nights were long, repetitive, and sometimes monotonous, but sticking to routines and trusting my strategies kept me alive. Patience became a weapon. I stopped rushing, stopped experimenting recklessly, and started respecting the rhythm of the game. I also faced moments of psychological pressure. Knowing that a single error could erase weeks of work was stressful. I developed techniques to stay calm, deep breathing, small breaks between nights, and visualizing the night ahead to anticipate challenges. Mini goals and motivation. To maintain focus, I set micro goals. Survive without taking damage. Upgrade this weapon fully, or reduce resource consumption by 10%. Achieving these kept morale high during what could have been a grind of endless repetition. Each small victory reinforced my confidence and built momentum for the next night. Key takeaways. By the end of this phase, I had transformed from a reactive player into a strategist. I wasn't just surviving, I was mastering the systems. Every night was a test of planning, patience, and execution. This mid-game experience laid the foundation for the thousands of nights ahead, turning endurance into a skill and discipline into a habit. This stretch was, without a doubt, the longest and most grueling part of my journey. Days blurred together, routines became ingrained, and I stopped counting nights in the traditional sense. Instead, I marked milestones, day 2500, day 3000, day 4000, and celebrated them quietly, knowing each represented countless hours of focus and endurance. Routine is everything. By this stage, I had a precise cycle: resource farming, base maintenance, strategic upgrades, and combat execution. Repetition became my greatest weapon. I developed night simulations during the day, running mental scenarios of enemy spawns and testing new trap placements. Every action was optimized to reduce risk and maximize efficiency. Farming routes were mapped meticulously. I identified areas with the highest resource yield per minute and avoided zones with unnecessary risk. Even small optimizations, like the order of harvesting or weapon rotations, added up over hundreds of nights, saving days' worth of effort. Avoiding burnout. The grind was intense, and burnout was a real threat. To combat it, I set mini-goals: fully upgrading a weapon, stockpiling a set amount of resources, or mastering a new combat technique. Each goal created a sense of accomplishment, breaking the monotony of endless survival. I also varied routines slightly, sometimes focusing on trap experimentation, other times on combat drills. This subtle variation kept my focus sharp and prevented mental fatigue. Music playlists and short breaks became essential tools in maintaining psychological endurance. Surviving mistakes. Mistakes at this stage could be catastrophic. Around day 3700, I overextended during a night raid. I miscalculated enemy spawn timing and lost a significant portion of my base defenses. That single night almost erased thousands of hours of progress. Recovering from that near disaster taught me humility. I implemented multiple backup strategies, redundant traps, secondary defensive lines, and contingency plans for each major enemy wave. Every future battle was treated with respect, no matter how routine it seemed. Strategic mastery. By day 4000, I had mastered a few key strategies. Trap synergy, combining damage over time traps with slowing traps to control enemy movement. Weapon rotation, using my primary, secondary, and emergency weapons in a timed sequence to minimize durability loss. Predictive positioning, anticipating enemy spawn points to maximize initial damage and prevent breakthroughs. Every strategy was tested, refined, and logged. I maintained a notebook of notes for night scenarios, spawn timings, and unusual enemy behaviors. These records became invaluable as the grind stretched into thousands of nights. Mental endurance. This phase was as much about psychology as gameplay. The sheer repetition could wear down focus. I developed mental rituals, visualizing victories, reviewing past mistakes, and mentally rehearsing optimal strategies before each night. By treating the game like a marathon rather than a sprint, I preserved focus and avoided the mental fatigue that traps many long-term players. Key takeaways. Routines save lives. Optimized cycles make the grind sustainable. Mini-goals prevent burnout. Small achievements maintain motivation. Respect every mistake. Late-game errors are exponentially costly. Log and analyze. Detailed notes of strategies and enemy behaviors accelerate mastery. By day 5000, I was no longer just playing 99 nights. I was living it. Every habit, every strategy, and every mental ritual was honed to perfection. I had survived the longest stretch, proving that endurance, patience, and meticulous planning were the true keys to success. By this point, I had entered a rhythm so precise it felt mechanical. Nights were no longer chaotic, they were predictable patterns that I had mastered. I knew enemy spawns, attack sequences, and weaknesses by heart. But the real challenge wasn't the game, it was myself. Maintaining focus and motivation over thousands of nights became the ultimate test. The grind becomes psychological. The enemies were no longer the main threat, boredom, distraction, and mental fatigue were. Staying alert for thousands of nights is surprisingly taxing. I had to develop mental techniques to maintain concentration. Segmented focus, breaking each night into phases, such as first wave, mid-wave, and final wave, allowed me to treat it like small, manageable challenges instead of one endless night. Micro-rituals, small habits before each night, checking traps, reviewing health, ensuring weapon durability, helped set a mental tone of readiness. Visualization, mentally rehearsing enemy behaviors and my responses kept reflexes sharp. System optimization. Efficiency wasn't just helpful, it was survival. I refined every routine. Farming routes. Optimized paths ensured maximum resource gain in minimal time. Repair and maintenance. Tools and traps were serviced in precise order to avoid downtime during critical nights. Combat timing, abilities, and attacks were synchronized with enemy spawn patterns, minimizing wasted energy and avoiding overextension. Every second saved during these nights multiplied across thousands of days, proving that small optimizations mattered enormously in long-term survival. Community support. Around day 7,000, I began sharing progress with other players. It was both motivational and educational. Discussing strategies, watching highlights, and receiving feedback added a social element that broke the monotony. Even brief interactions, like tips on rare resource farming or advanced trap placement, offered insights that saved countless hours. Mental toughness. By day 8,000, I was acutely aware that consistency was more important than power. The biggest threat was complacency. Even minor lapses could have devastating consequences. I developed habits to avoid mistakes, double-checking equipment, rotating weapons predictably, and maintaining backup resources at all times. Key lessons of this phase. Consistency is everything. Regular routines keep progress steady. Mental stamina matters as much as combat skill. Staying alert for thousands of nights is a skill in itself. Every optimization counts. Tiny improvements multiply over long stretches. Community interactions enhance motivation. Sharing progress and learning from others prevents burnout. Looking ahead, reaching day 9,000 felt surreal. The finish line was visible, yet the pressure intensified. Each subsequent night carried the weight of thousands of previous nights. Preparation, focus, and mental endurance became absolute priorities. There was no room for error. Crossing day 9,000 felt like stepping into a legendary stage of the game. I wasn't just surviving, I was preparing for history. Every night from this point onward carried the weight of thousands of previous nights, and even the smallest mistake could erase years of effort. The challenge was no longer the enemies, it was precision, patience, and mental resilience. Preparation. I meticulously stocked every resource, repaired every tool, and created backup plans for every scenario. Every weapon, trap, and consumable had a designated purpose. I even arranged secondary tools and repair kits in multiple locations to ensure that nothing could slow me down in case of unexpected events. I spent hours revisiting previous mistakes, analyzing every near failure from the past 9,000 nights. Lessons learned from overextending, misplacing traps, or miscalculating enemy waves became protocols for the final stretch. Nothing was left to chance. No risks allowed. At this stage, even seemingly easy fights were treated like life-or-death encounters. A minor lapse could undo months of preparation. I avoided unnecessary battles, always stuck to known safe strategies, and never relied on luck. Precision and discipline were my only allies. One memorable night, a rare enemy wave spawned earlier than expected. Thanks to meticulous trap placement and a pre-planned retreat strategy, I handled it flawlessly. That moment reinforced the importance of preparation and staying calm under pressure. The countdown. I began marking milestones in smaller increments. Day 9,500, day 9,750, day 9,900. Each step felt like climbing a mountain. Nights were celebrated quietly with personal rituals, checking off each milestone, noting lessons learned, and mentally preparing for the next stretch. The tension grew with each passing night. Sleep became a luxury, as I often spent days planning, repairing, and optimizing, knowing that one night of carelessness could be catastrophic. Mental fortitude. This final phase tested endurance more than skill. I developed mental techniques to maintain focus, breaking nights into micro-goals to reduce psychological fatigue, visualizing the completion of each night before starting, maintaining strict routines to prevent errors under pressure. By day 9950, every night felt historic. I wasn't playing for points or loot. I was playing to prove the culmination of years of discipline, strategy, and perseverance.